A stepmother abandons a girl in a trash dump. Years later, the girl did something surprising. Lucy, an 8-year-old girl, was living a happy childhood in her father's luxurious mansion. Jean, a real estate magnate in Bordeaux, France, ensured her happiness despite the devastating loss of her mother when she was just 4. The mansion, decorated with elegant art pieces and surrounded by lush gardens, housed a library where Lucy spent hours immersed in adventure books. Jean, always loving and dedicated, did everything possible to create a safe and loving environment for his daughter. Lucy's happiness seemed complete until Claire arrived. Jean met Claire at a charity event, and she quickly caught his attention with her beauty and intelligence. Claire was charming, always with a smile and a kind word. She brought gifts for Lucy, winning her trust and affection. Months later, Jean and Claire married in a grand ceremony. To Lucy, Claire seemed like the perfect stepmother, attentive and caring. However, Claire's intentions were much darker than they appeared. One night, while playing in the garden under the silver moonlight, Lucy saw something that changed her life forever. Through the living room window, she caught Claire kissing an unknown man. The man, Antoine, had a deceitful look. Lucy's heart raced, and she felt a chill down her spine. Confused and scared, she ran inside, trying to understand what she had just seen. The next day, Lucy decided to confront Claire. Trembling, she entered the kitchen where Claire was preparing breakfast. "Claire, why were you kissing that man last night?" Lucy asked, her voice wavering. Claire slowly turned, her cold eyes fixing on Lucy. "You shouldn't have seen that, Lucy," she said in a threatening tone. Before Lucy could respond, Claire grabbed her arm tightly and whispered, "If you tell anyone about what you saw, I'll make your life a living hell, and I guarantee your father will never believe you." Fear took hold of Lucy. Claire's loving expression disappeared, revealing a cruel and manipulative woman. Feeling powerless and betrayed, Lucy withdrew into herself. Playing in the garden became rare, and the house once filled with laughter was now filled with silence and tension. Jean noticed the change in his daughter's behavior. "Lucy, is everything okay? You seem different," he asked, concerned. Lucy desperately wanted to tell the truth, but Claire's words echoed in her mind. "I'm fine, Daddy. I'm just tired," she replied, trying to hide her anxiety. Claire, always manipulative, had a ready excuse for any question. "Lucy is just going through a phase, Jean. Don't worry," she said with a fake smile. Blinded by his love for Claire, Jean didn't see the true extent of his new wife's malice. He believed her words and tried to reassure Lucy, unaware of what was really happening. Each passing day, Lucy felt more isolated and helpless. The happiness of her childhood had been stolen, replaced by a constant feeling of fear and betrayal. She knew she needed to do something to protect her father, but the fear and sense of powerlessness in the face of such a manipulative and cruel woman consumed her. The nights were filled with nightmares and a sense of despair that only increased her silent determination. Weeks turned into months, and the tension in the mansion grew day by day. Lucy continued to live under the shadow of Claire's threat, but nothing could prepare her for what was to come. Claire and Antoine began meeting more frequently, always planning something in secret. Claire's behavior became increasingly cold and calculating, while Jean remained unaware, immersed in his love for his wife and the family business. One morning, Claire suggested that Jean visit a nearby city to evaluate some promising properties. "It would be a great opportunity to expand our investments, dear," she said with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. Jean, thrilled with the idea, agreed without hesitation. While Jean prepared for the trip, Claire and Antoine orchestrated their dark plans. They knew that with Jean out of the way, they could take control of the entire fortune. The night before the trip, Claire toasted with Jean, hiding her true intention. "To the new opportunities that will come," she said, raising her glass of wine. Jean smiled, unaware of the falseness in her words. The next morning, Jean left for the neighboring city. Claire insisted that he go alone, saying she needed to take care of some things at home. However, what Jean didn't know was that Antoine had sabotaged the car's brakes the night before. As he descended a steep road, Jean realized the brakes weren't working. He desperately tried to control the car, but it was in vain. The car veered off the road and plummeted down a cliff. The news of Jean's death spread quickly. The mansion was engulfed in mourning, and Lucy, devastated by her father's loss, was even more at the mercy of Claire. In the days that followed, Claire feigned sadness, but her cold eyes gleamed with sinister satisfaction. With Jean out of the way, she had complete control over the inheritance and Lucy's life. One night, while Lucy slept, Claire entered her room holding a blanket and a bag. "Wake up, Lucy," she whispered, her voice icy. Lucy woke up startled, seeing her stepmother with a dark expression. "You no longer have a place here," said Claire, dragging Lucy out of bed and wrapping her in the blanket. Claire drove Lucy to the car, driving through deserted streets to a dump on the city's outskirts. "This is where you belong," said Claire, pushing Lucy out of the car. Lucy, crying, looked at Claire, but her stepmother only smiled coldly. "And if you try to come back, I'll make sure you're never found. No one will miss you." With those cruel words, Claire got into the car and left, leaving Lucy alone in the cold and darkness. Lucy, tears streaming down her face, wandered through the dump, trying to find shelter. The nauseating smell and oppressive darkness heightened her despair. After hours of loneliness and fear, she collapsed beside a pile of garbage, exhausted and hopeless. The next morning, when people in the mansion noticed Lucy's absence, they began asking questions. Claire, with a sad expression, lied to everyone. Lucy ran away. She was rebellious since Jean's death. "I tried everything to help her, but she just didn't want to stay." At dawn, a couple of English tourists, Elizabeth and Thomas, passed by the dump and heard Lucy's faint sobs. "Thomas, stop the car." "I heard something," said Elizabeth, worried. They found Lucy, dirty and injured, and immediately took her to the hospital. In the hospital, Lucy was cared for and began to recover physically, but the emotional trauma was deep. She was in shock and couldn't talk about what had happened. Elizabeth and Thomas, moved by compassion, decided to adopt Lucy, offering her a new chance at life in England. "We'll take care of you, dear," said Elizabeth, holding Lucy's hand tenderly. "You'll never be alone again." Lucy left for England with her new adoptive parents, carrying with her the pain of loss and the promise of an uncertain future. As the plane took off, she looked out the window, determined to find a way to honor her father's memory and face the demons of her past. The flight to England was long and silent. Lucy, still in shock, kept her eyes fixed on the window, watching the clouds pass by. Elizabeth and Thomas tried to comfort her, but Lucy barely registered their words. Upon arriving at the airport, the couple guided Lucy to the car, taking her to their new home in a quiet London neighborhood. The new home was welcoming, with a well-kept garden and a cozy room specially prepared for Lucy. Elizabeth and Thomas did everything to help her adjust. "This is your new home, Lucy. We're here for you," said Elizabeth, showing the house to the girl. The first few months were difficult. Lucy barely spoke, only responding with nods or murmurs. She avoided any mention of her past, diving into her studies and school activities to keep her mind occupied. Elizabeth and Thomas, patiently, gave her the time and space she needed to heal. Over time, Lucy began to open up. She found comfort in friendship with some classmates and the loving guidance of her adoptive parents. However, memories of the past still haunted her dreams, and the pain of losing her father did not diminish. 13 years passed. Lucy, now 21, had become a strong and determined young woman. Despite all the love and support from Elizabeth and Thomas, the need for justice for what happened to her father never disappeared. She knew that to move forward, she needed to confront her past. One day, while browsing the internet, Lucy found an article about her old city in France. Memories flooded back, and the pain she had tried to suppress for so many years resurfaced with full force. That night, she decided it was time to return and plan her confrontation. During a conversation with Elizabeth and Thomas, Lucy shared her decision. "I need to go back to France," she said, her voice firm. "I need to find out the truth about my father's death." Elizabeth and Thomas were surprised but didn't question her decision. "If that's what you need to do, we will support you," said Thomas, holding Lucy's hand. "But you don't have to do this alone." To ensure that Claire wouldn't recognize her, Lucy decided to change her name to Emile. This new identity would protect her while she investigated the truth about her father's death. With the help of her adoptive parents, she began planning her trip back to France. The preparations for the trip were meticulous. Emile conducted detailed research on the current lives of Claire and Antoine. She discovered that they still lived in the mansion and that Claire managed the family business. Emile knew she needed a careful plan to infiltrate Claire's life without arousing suspicion. During the nights, Emile studied every detail she found about Claire and Antoine. She mapped out plans, listed contacts, and devised strategies. With a new passport in hand, she practiced her new name and identity, preparing for the inevitable confrontation. "Are you ready for this?" asked Elizabeth one night before the departure. "It's a difficult path you've chosen, Emile." "I know, Mom," Emile replied, now with a more confident voice. "But I need to do this. For me and for my father." With her suitcase ready and her heart full of determination, Emile left for France, carrying the pain of the past and the hope for justice. She was prepared to face Claire and Antoine, and nothing would stop her from discovering the truth and honoring her father's memory. Emile felt a mix of anxiety and determination as she landed at Charles de Gaulle Airport. The familiarity of the language, the smell of fresh coffee, and the sound of conversations in French brought back memories of her childhood. She took a deep breath, adjusted the strap of her bag on her shoulder, and stepped out to face her past. Before heading to the mansion, Emile spent a few days in a small hotel reviewing her plans. Every step had to be meticulous. She needed to infiltrate Claire's life without raising suspicion. To do this, she decided to get a job at the mansion as a domestic assistant. Upon arriving at the mansion, the sight of the imposing structure made her pause for a moment. Memories of her childhood flooded her mind. Taking a deep breath, Emile rang the doorbell and a housekeeper opened the door. "I'm here for the interview," said Emile with a confident smile. Claire, busy with her tasks, barely looked at her as she entered the living room. "You look familiar," said Claire, narrowing her eyes for a moment. Emile maintained her composure and smiled. "Maybe I have one of those common faces," she replied pleasantly. "But I must say, Mrs. Claire, your mansion is even more impressive in person. Your good taste is evident in every detail." Claire, visibly flattered by the compliment, relaxed her expression. "Well, thank you. I strive to keep everything perfect," she said, finally paying attention to the references Emile had provided. Satisfied with what she saw, Claire decided to hire her. "You can start tomorrow. We need someone competent here." In the first few days of work, Emile remained focused on her tasks, discreetly observing every move of Claire and Antoine. The reunion with every corner of the mansion brought back painful memories, but she used it as fuel for her mission. While cleaning the hallways, the familiar aroma of polished oak furniture and the sound of footsteps echoing off the walls made her relive moments of her childhood. Every detail of the environment was a constant reminder of what she had lost and what she was determined to reclaim. One afternoon, while polishing the furniture in Claire's office, Emile felt a chill down her spine. Claire entered the room silently, catching her by surprise. "Was everything all right, Emile?" Claire asked, raising an eyebrow. Emile quickly composed herself. "Yes, Mrs. Claire, just admiring the beauty of this office." "Your taste is impeccable," she said with a smile. Claire smiled, pleased with the compliment. "Thank you, Emile. I hope you continue to enjoy working here." Emile nodded, relieved to have diverted Claire's attention. Every day brought new challenges and new opportunities to observe Claire and Antoine. Emile made sure to perform all her tasks excellently, gaining Claire's trust. At the same time, she kept a close eye on any suspicious behavior or documents that could incriminate Claire and Antoine. As she went about her daily tasks, Emile paid attention to everything around her. She observed Claire and Antoine's routine, looking for any signs of suspicious behavior. Each discovery, each little detail she noted, brought her closer to her goal. The tension was always present. Emile knew that any slip could reveal her true identity and ruin everything. Even so, she remained firm, determined to bring justice for her father. One night, after finishing her tasks, Emile went up to her attic room, exhausted. She lay down on the bed and closed her eyes, but sleep didn't come easily. Memories of her father and the desire for revenge kept her awake. "I will discover the truth," she murmured to herself before finally falling asleep. Days at the mansion passed slowly, and Emile continued her meticulous work, always observing and noting every detail. She knew she needed more information to expose Claire and Antoine. The tension was constant, but her determination to bring justice for her father kept her strong. One day, while cleaning the garden, Emile saw a familiar figure approaching. It was Julian, her childhood friend, who now worked as a gardener on the property. Emile's heart raced, and she tried to hide her reaction, but Julian recognized her immediately. "Is that you?" Julian asked incredulously, holding Emile's arm. Emile felt the ground disappear beneath her feet. She couldn't hide the truth any longer. With teary eyes, she quickly shook her head. "You're mistaken. My name is Emile," she said, trying to keep her composure. Julian narrowed his eyes, looking at her more closely. "No, I know those eyes. You're Lucy. Please, tell me the truth." Emile felt tears welling up and turned her face away. "No, you're confused," she insisted, but her voice betrayed her emotion. Julian didn't give up. "Lucy, please. If it's you, tell me what's going on. Why are you here with another name?" Emile took a deep breath, trying to control the tears. "And not here. Let's go somewhere we can talk," she said, leading Julian to a more secluded corner of the garden. Sitting under the shade of a large tree, Emile finally broke down. "Yes, Julian, it's me. I'm Lucy." Julian, still in shock, looked around to make sure no one was watching them. "What's going on? Why are you here with another name?" he whispered, worried. Emile began to tell her story. "Julian, I came back to find out the truth about my father's death. Claire and Antoine, they killed him. I know it, and I need to prove it." Julian listened attentively, his expression changing from shock to anger and finally to shared determination. "And they killed your father? My God, Lucy. Or rather, Emile. That's terrible." Emile could no longer hold back the tears. "Yes, they did, and then they abandoned me. I was rescued by an English couple who adopted me. They gave me a new life, but I could never forget or forgive what Claire and Antoine did." Julianne placed a hand on Emile's shoulder, trying to comfort her. Why didn't you tell anyone before?" "I was scared," Emile confessed, her voice choked. "And no one would believe a child. Claire and Antoine were powerful, and I had no proof. But now I'm stronger, and I need your help, Julian. I can't do this alone." Julian sighed, absorbing the magnitude of the situation. "Do you have a plan?" "Yes, I'm trying to gather enough evidence to expose them. I've already observed some suspicious things, but I need more concrete information. I know it's dangerous, but I can't give up now." Julian looked directly into Emile's eyes, his expression serious. "You're not alone anymore, Emile. I'll help you. We'll discover the truth together." Emile felt a wave of relief and hope. "Thank you, Julian. I don't know what I would do without you." Julian gave a slight smile, gently squeezing Emile's shoulder. "We'll expose those monsters and bring justice to your father. But we need to be careful. They can't suspect anything." With a new alliance formed, Emile and Julian began to plot a detailed plan to gather the necessary evidence. Every step would be meticulously calculated, every move carefully planned. Emile's determination strengthened, fueled by the friendship and support of Julian. Emile and Julian, now allies, began working together on a detailed plan to expose Claire and Antoine. The tension and adrenaline drove their actions as they searched every corner of the mansion for evidence. Each day, Emile's curiosity and determination intensified. One night, Emile and Julianne met in the mansion's library. "We have to be quick and quiet," Julianne whispered. "Any noise could give us away." They started exploring the old files, looking for any clues that could incriminate Claire and Antoine. It was then that Emile found a document that seemed out of place. It was a mechanic's report. As she read it, her hands trembled. "Julian, look at this," she said, handing the document to him. Julian read carefully. "Maintenance report. Describes the brake sabotage. My God, this is proof." The revelation shocked Emile. She knew her father hadn't died by accident, but seeing the written proof was devastating. "And they really sabotaged my father's car," she murmured, feeling a wave of contempt and anger grow inside her. Knowing they needed more evidence to build a solid case, they continued the search. In Claire's office, Emile found a safe disguised as a bookshelf. "Here, Julian, help me open this," she whispered. After a few minutes, they managed to open the safe and found recordings of conversations stored on a device. Julian took the recorder and listened to a snippet. "This is Antoine discussing the brake sabotage with someone," he said, impressed. "And these recordings are crucial," Emile frowned. Why would Claire have these recordings? Julian reflected for a moment. Maybe she had someone follow Antoine and record the conversation as proof against him. It could be a way to protect herself in case he betrayed her. As they explored more documents, Emile found a series of emails and messages exchanged between Claire and Antoine. The messages detailed every step of the malicious plan. "Here are the emails," said Emile, passing the sheets to Julian. They discussed the plan like a business transaction. Despicable. Julian analyzed the emails, feeling anger bubbling inside him. These two are monsters. We need to find more evidence to ensure they don't escape justice. With each discovery, the pain and anger inside Emile grew. Memories of her father flooded her mind. His laughter, his words of encouragement, and his unconditional love. The injustice consumed her heart. Emile couldn't hold back the tears, falling to her knees. Julian, beside her, knelt and held her hand. "Emile, we need to be strong. This proves the accident was planned. They killed your father." Emile, still crying, looked at Julian with renewed determination. "They will pay for this. I will bring justice to my father." With all the evidence gathered, Emile and Julien began planning how to expose Claire and Antoine without raising suspicion before the right moment. The tension increased every day, but Emile's determination to bring justice to her father kept her firm. Emile had only been at the mansion for a week. During that time, she stayed busy with tasks in the west wing of the house, away from the main quarters where Claire and Antoine spent most of their time. This separation allowed her to observe discreetly and collect information without raising suspicion. One afternoon, while cleaning the library, Emile heard firm footsteps approaching. The sound echoed on the marble floor, each heavy step feeling like a blow to her racing heart. As she turned, she came face to face with Antoine, who was observing her with a scrutinizing look. Her heart pounded, and she struggled to stay calm. "You're the new maid, right?" Antoine asked, his voice carrying a tone of distrust. The smell of the cigar he smoked invaded her nostrils, intensifying her anxiety. "My name is Emile," she replied, trying not to show her nervousness. Her stomach was in knots, and she could feel cold sweat running down her back. Antoine watched her for a moment, his eyes narrowing. "There's something familiar about you," he said, taking a step closer. "You remind me of someone." Emile felt a chill down her spine but maintained her composure. "And I'm new here. Maybe it's just your impression," she said, stepping back, trying to create distance. Her voice trembled slightly, and she hoped he didn't notice. Antoine didn't seem convinced. He took another step toward her, his features becoming more threatening. "Are you sure you're telling me the truth?" he asked, his tone becoming harsher. The air around them seemed heavier, making it hard for Emile to breathe. She knew she had to think fast. Any slip could reveal her true identity and ruin everything. "Of course, sir. I came here recently looking for work. Mrs. Claire was kind enough to offer me this opportunity." She tried to smile, but her lips barely moved. Antoine still watched her intently, as if trying to decipher a puzzle. Emile felt the sweat trickling down her neck, but kept her gaze steady, avoiding any sign of nervousness. Her fingers tightened around the cleaning cloth she held, her knuckles turning white. "Oh well," Antoine finally said, stepping back a bit. "If you're here to work, then do your job right. I don't want any trouble." His voice still carried a veiled threat, and he looked at her for a few more seconds before turning away. "Of course," Emile replied, feeling a growing sense of relief. Her body relaxed slightly, but fear still held her tightly. As Antoine left the library, Emile felt her legs tremble. She waited until Antoine's steps faded before allowing herself to breathe again. Her heart was still racing, and she knew that had been a close call. Tears threatened to fall, but she held them back, determined not to show weakness. That night, Emile met with Julien to report what had happened. "Julien, I had an encounter with Antoine today," she said, her voice still trembling slightly. "He almost recognized me." Julien frowned, worried. That's dangerous, Emile. We need to be more careful. If he suspects you, everything could be over." "I know," Emile said, fighting back tears. "But I can't give up now. We're so close to the truth." Julien held her hands firmly. "We'll continue, but we need to be more cautious. Any mistake could be fatal." As Julien spoke, Emile felt a wave of gratitude and comfort for having him by her side. Her eyes met his, and she saw the worry and determination in his gaze. The tension of the moment briefly dissolved, and a deeper connection emerged between them. Julian moved closer, and before Emile could react, he gently pulled her into a kiss. The world around them seemed to disappear, and for a moment the pain and fear dissipated. When they parted, Julian looked at her tenderly. "I'm here for you, Emile. We'll do this together." Emile nodded, her heart beating fast, but now not just from fear but also from hope and something else she couldn't fully define. The kiss between Emile and Julian brought a brief sense of relief and hope, but the grim reality quickly returned. Each day at the mansion was a struggle to remain calm and continue gathering information without raising suspicion. Tension hung in the air, and Emile knew she had to be extremely careful. One night, while performing her tasks in the kitchen, Emile heard laughter and loud voices coming from the living room. Recognizing Claire and Antoine's voices, she quietly approached the slightly open door, making sure she wouldn't be seen. The strong aroma of wine in the air indicated they had drunk more than usual. "Jean was a fool," said Claire, her voice filled with contempt and slightly slurred from the alcohol. "He never suspected anything. He trusted me blindly." Emile felt a tightening in her chest. The deep pain of hearing her stepmother speak that way about her father made her want to confront them immediately, but she restrained herself, knowing she needed to hear more. "And that's true," replied Antoine, laughing softly. "It was so easy to deceive him. And now, we're reaping the benefits." His voice had a tone of satisfaction that made Emile's blood boil. Claire sighed, seeming satisfied. Yes, but we need to continue being careful." Antoine, however, narrowed his eyes. "Even so, that new maid, Emile? Something about her seems familiar. We need to make sure she doesn't become a problem. We can't afford any mistakes." Claire swirled her wine glass and smiled. "You're overreacting, Antoine. She's just a maid. In fact, she's been a darling. She's helped me a lot. She's a poor thing who needs the job." Emile's blood ran cold. They were talking about her. She leaned against the wall, trying to control her breathing and the growing panic. Antoine huffed but relented. "Maybe you're right, but we should maintain appearances. Any slip could compromise us. We've already achieved what we wanted, but we can't relax." Claire nodded, her gaze becoming serious for a moment. "Oh, of course. We need to ensure everything continues as it is. We can't afford mistakes now." Every word from Claire and Antoine was a blow to her heart, but also strengthened her determination. She needed to bring justice for her father and stop these monsters from continuing to live with impunity. She quietly stepped away from the door, her heart pounding and anger pulsing through her veins. Claire and Antoine's cruel words echoed in her mind, fueling the flame of revenge. Emile knew she needed to act quickly but also cautiously. She couldn't afford to be careless now. That night, she met with Julian in the garden, away from prying eyes. "Julian, I heard Claire and Antoine talking about my father. They called him a fool and talked about their evil plans," she said, her voice trembling with emotion. "Antoine is suspicious of me, but Claire believes I'm just a harmless maid." Julian hugged her, trying to comfort her. "These people are monsters, Emile, but we need to be smart about this. We can't let them find out what we know until we're ready to act." "I know," Emile replied, feeling the tears run down her face. "But hearing those things about my father, it made me realize how much I need to bring justice. I can't let them get away with it." Julian held her face between his hands, looking directly into her eyes. "And we will succeed, Emile. We'll bring justice for your father and stop these monsters." Emile nodded, her determination renewed. Claire and Antoine's cruel words had hurt her deeply, but they had also strengthened her. She was more determined than ever to expose them and bring justice for her father. Days at the mansion became more tense for Emile and Julian. Every move had to be calculated precisely, and they knew the moment of truth was approaching. Emile felt the adrenaline coursing through her veins with every step she took, knowing the time to confront Claire and Antoine was near. On a rainy afternoon, Emile met with Julian in the mansion's attic, where they had hidden all the evidence they had collected. "Everything is ready," Julian said, holding an envelope full of documents and recordings. "We have everything we need." Emile took a deep breath, feeling a mix of nerves and determination. "Today is the day, Julian. We're going to end this." They went down together to the living room, where Claire and Antoine were drinking wine and discussing something trivial. When they saw Emile and Julien enter, Claire frowned. "What do you want?" she asked, her voice filled with irritation. Emile stepped forward, her gaze fixed on Claire and Antoine. "We have something important to discuss with you." Antoine raised an eyebrow, his look suspicious. What could be so important that you interrupt our time?" Julien handed the envelope to Emile, who opened it and began spreading the documents on the table. "These are records of all your illegal transactions. The messages exchanged about sabotaging my father's car and the recordings of your conversations." Claire paled, her eyes wide with shock. "What are you talking about?" Emile held up a recording and pressed play. Antoine's voice discussing the brake sabotage with a mechanic echoed through the room. "This is proof that you two planned my father's death," Emile said, her voice firm. "And now, everyone will know the truth." Claire and Antoine exchanged glances, their confidence quickly fading. "What are you talking about?" Claire insisted, her voice starting to falter. Emile stepped forward, her eyes blazing with anger and determination. "I'm Lucy, Jean's daughter. And now, I have all the evidence to expose both of you." The silence in the room was deafening. Claire and Antoine were speechless, their masks of confidence crumbling. "Lucy?" Claire whispered, the color draining from her face. "But you should be dead, in the trash. How did you survive?" "You abandoned me," Emile interrupted, her voice filled with emotion. "But I survived. And now, I'm here to bring justice." Antoine scoffed, trying to maintain his arrogance. "You think anyone will believe you? We are powerful. We can destroy you with a snap of our fingers." Julien stepped forward, holding a camera. "Everything you said is recorded. And we've already sent copies of the evidence to the authorities. There's no escape." Suddenly, the front door was forcefully opened, and police officers entered the room, their expressions serious. "Claire Dubois and Antoine Leclerc, you are under arrest for the crimes of murder, conspiracy, and fraud," announced the lead officer. Claire began to cry, while Antoine tried to argue, but the officers didn't listen. They were handcuffed and taken out of the mansion, leaving Emile and Julien alone in the room. Emile felt a deep release, as if a huge weight had been lifted off her shoulders. She looked at Julien, who hugged her tightly. "We did it, Lucy. We brought justice." She smiled through her tears, feeling a sense of peace for the first time in years. But the journey wasn't over yet. There was still much to be done, but now, at least, her father could rest in peace. The arrest of Claire and Antoine shook the community deeply. The news spread like wildfire, and the shock turned into a mix of relief and anger among those who had been deceived by the couple's respectable facade. Emile felt a wave of emotions as she saw people's reactions, finally feeling that justice had prevailed. In the following days, Emile and Julien dedicated themselves to ensuring that all the evidence was properly presented to the authorities. The case against Claire and Antoine was solid, and soon they would face trial for their crimes. Justice would finally be served. Emile met with her adoptive parents, Elizabeth and Thomas, to share the news. "You always believed in me and gave me a new life when I needed it most," Emile said, hugging them. "Now finally, justice will be served for my father." Elizabeth, with tears in her eyes, held Emile's hands. "Oh, we are so proud of you. We knew you were strong enough to face all of this." Thomas nodded, his expression serious. "You did what was right, Emile. Your father would be very proud of you." The trial of Claire and Antoine was a major event. The evidence presented by Emile and Julien was irrefutable. The recordings, emails, and the confession of the mechanic who sabotaged Jean's car were enough to ensure the couple's conviction. They were sentenced to long prison terms, and justice finally prevailed. With Claire and Antoine behind bars, Emile felt a sense of peace beginning to settle in her heart. Her father's honor had been restored, and the revenge finally achieved. But now, she needed to look to the future. Back in England, Emile began to plan her new life. She decided to resume her studies and invest in a career she had always dreamed of. Julien, by her side, became a constant pillar of support. Their relationship strengthened over time, and together they began to build a promising future. Emile visited her father's grave, bringing with her a letter recounting everything that had happened. "Dad, justice has been served. I promised I would do this for you, and now you can rest in peace." She left the letter there, feeling a renewal of hope and peace in her heart. With Julian by her side, Emile knew she was not alone. They planned a future together, full of love and new possibilities. The painful past was finally buried, and a new chapter opened. With the unwavering support of her adoptive parents and Julian by her side, she was ready to face the future with courage and determination.